Hello there and welcome back. Thanks for joining me again as we continue to talk about security and compliance services. In this lesson, we're going to talk about various services that AWS offers as far as security and compliance is concerned. But before we jump into this heavyweight discussion, let's take a few steps back and understand the need for security and need for compliance. The objective of information security in an organization is to prevent and protect any kind of malicious activities to occur. These actions can be done accidentally or intentionally, can be done by external forces or internal employees. So, by taking sufficient measures in each layer of the application, you are trying your best to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. So you will deploy various mechanisms or tools in the form of hardware and software to cater to the needs of security. And these tools can be your firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, antivirus, security scanning, etc. But there's always a question: have I done enough? Are we ready to take and filter the storm of packets sent by external powerful attackers? The answer to this is not a simple yes or no, because security is never done. It's never complete. We work on it every day, every hour to identify the vulnerabilities and fix those holes in our infrastructure setup. In simple words, the process of identifying these vulnerabilities in your system, in your network, is called as penetration testing. Attackers usually employ an attack technique called as DDoS, stands for distributed denial of service, and they use it to attack the infrastructure that we have. We use this term DDoS in one of the previous sections called CloudFront. So if you recall, I did mention that CloudFront has inbuilt DDoS protection capabilities. So what are we trying to achieve with pen testing techniques? Well, with a penetration testing technique, enterprises would know where they stand as far as security is concerned. Are we ready for that attack? Are there any loopholes in my application? Are there any holes in the firewall? So, with penetration testing, you evaluate for security vulnerabilities that could be exploited by an attacker. At the time we conduct any penetration testing, it will eat up a lot of resources. It will start to scan your network. So there's a lot of activity one can see in the network traffic and also in the operating system. It becomes difficult to differentiate between a penetration testing and a real attack. And this is why AWS does not allow penetration testing on infrastructure on AWS unless you notify them, unless you take prior approval from AWS. Now, although AWS does allow penetration testing, there are certain things that are not allowed. So if you look at this page and scroll down a little bit, it tells me what are the permitted services on which a penetration testing can be done and what are the services on which penetration testing are prohibited, cannot be done. So they do not allow DDoS services kind of testing or simulated attacks, port flooding, protocol flooding, or request flooding through APIs. If you are a security professional and interested in this area, I suggest that you mark this URL as a favorite so that you keep yourself updated about new happenings in the penetration testing area in AWS. So if you have contacted some external party to run your penetration testing in AWS, then you got to follow certain protocols. So you have to go ahead and email this particular email address and let them know about various things. Like on what date would you like to run the penetration test? What are the accounts that are involved? What assets, like is it an EC2 instance or is it a storage? And whom can AWS contact just in case there's a problem. So you will include your contact details and phone number, etc. There are certain policies that you must be aware of as to what are the allowed rules based on which a network stress test can be done. Like I said, this page from AWS is a one-stop shop where you can know everything about allowed and not allowed areas of pen testing on AWS. So if you want to know more about pen testing on AWS, you know where to go. Go ahead and check this URL, and there's dearth of information out here. There's another service related to pen testing and security in AWS, and that is called as AWS Guard Duty. The Guard Duty is a threat detection service that constantly monitors the AWS accounts and the workloads. So in the backend, it is using a threat intelligence feed to detect the threats in the environment. It is a proactive service that monitors for things that potentially could impact your environment. And then there's another service called as AWS Inspector. So the inspector analyzes the VPC environments for potential security issues. So it uses a predefined template and then it matches the environment to that template. And if it finds any differences between the two, then it's able to provide you with the recommendations to help you resolve those potential security issues. And then there is AWS Shield, and the Shield is used for DDoS protection. So DDoS attack happens when multiple compromised systems will attempt to flood a target with lots of traffic, right? So all the AWS services have some kind of basic level of AWS Shield protection. But then if you like advanced features, there's an advanced level as well. Now this is where AWS can actively assist with issues related to DDoS protection. Another security feature from AWS is AWS WAF, or Web Application Firewall. So what is it doing? WAF is monitoring all the web requests that are going to your Elastic Load Balancer, to the CloudFront, or to the API gateway, and then allows those connections or denies those connections based on the conditions, based on the rules that you have specified. WAF is really powerful service that will protect your services in AWS proactively from malicious attacks. And the last service in AWS that I'm going to mention in this lesson is AWS Artifact. The AWS Artifact is a portal that provides access to compliance documentation. So if your business is working with, let's say, credit card information or banking data, or let's say you're part of the hospital industry, then you need to follow certain compliances like PCI DSS and HIPAA. AWS Artifact can provide the compliance documentation for AWS. It is a central place for you to get access to the AWS compliance documentation. To summarize and wrap up this lesson, we spoke about various services that we have in AWS as far as security is concerned and compliance as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.